Hey investors, I'm going to wait for a few people to pop on here, see what you guys have to say with what's going on with your investments. I want to get some of your guys' perspective. What I'm seeing in the marketplace is, hey Johnny boy, how's it going? How you doing? What I'm seeing in the marketplace is I kind of look at the macro markets and I look at the cycles. How you doing? How's investment stuff going with you, Johnny? Renee? Welcome. Good to see you on here. Saw you earlier on here as well. Yeah, I mean, for me, I come from the tech world in 1995, back then in real estate since 2002, and eventually, instead of looking too closely at cryptocurrency or too closely with real estate investing, I look at everything as kind of more of a macro level, and I follow CNBC in the headlines. I follow zerohedge.com in the headlines, and I'm looking at stuff like the aging demographics. I'm looking at the debt going up, which is keeping the economy going. Johnny, I don't actually know much about the Chia networks. What's actually going on with that? Let us know a little bit about that. So then I look at the macro networks and the macro economy, I guess, and it looks to me like what's interesting right now is about the bond yields going up, and then that's making the prices of the value of the bonds actually going down, and it's affecting the stock market as well. But what's really affecting the stock market is the interest rates that are going up. And as I was saying in an earlier scope, the Jeff Bezos and Warren Buffett are finally getting together with JP Morgan, and they're creating a health disruption, which is causing some disruption in the stock market as well. So that's pretty interesting what's happening there. But there's a lot of fears in the market right now because of the interest rates going up, and it's causing the whole stock market as a whole to go down quite a bit. So you were seeing it down like 1 to 1.5% earlier in the day, a few hundred points. And we haven't seen a lot of that over the last couple of years, right? So we've just been seeing this steady rise of the stock market for 7, 8, 9 years and so forth. So, hey Johnny boy, welcome back again. So it's pretty interesting what we're seeing out there. If you guys want to see some real interesting articles on stuff just besides just cryptocurrencies and all these ups and downs, is CEO Bram Cohen famously invented BitTorrent. Okay, the first modern decentralized network protocol. Okay. Chia. Okay, so it's fairly technical. Sounds like you got to like kind of look into it closely to like fully understand it. But okay, so you're definitely probably the expert on here when it comes to the Chia networks, and thank you for sharing that. And what I find interesting is, having lived in the whole cycle with the real estate thing and seeing it crash in 2007, 2008, we're looking at everything going back up again, and then possibly looking for signals that are showing that that's going to happen again. So real estate interest rates are going up, the very low inventory, the baby boomers are staying in their houses. What was really interesting about the articles I was sharing in my Facebook group earlier was they're talking about, how most people have really good interest rates that over the last few years they've locked in these 3% plus interest rates. And the question is why would they sell their house to go into a 4 plus interest rate loan? It wouldn't make any sense, right? They would just stay in their locked in low interest rate loan. So you've got that, you've got the millennials living with the baby boomers, you got the baby boomers are not ready to sell. It's creating a very low inventory. It's creating it's tough for the buyers, because the buyers are like, well, hey James, the buyers want to come in, they want to buy, but they can't because there's just not that much inventory. So supply and demand, we're in that cycle. Chia.network. Okay, cool. Thank you for sharing that, Johnny. And so what it does is, because of supply and demand, it just, hey Edgar, it just makes the price shoot way up, just like anything else. Just like cryptocurrency, we've been seeing that a lot. Just like fidget spinners, the price went way up on those, right? And we'll see the fidget spinners as that fad and trend goes away. We'll see the prices start to go down on something like that. And we saw the demand on, hey, TS Parthaven, welcome. What's really interesting is I know some of you are looking for which cryptocurrency to go after, which one do I go after and stuff. I don't want to give you investment advice on that, but I can give you some strategies that I think would be pretty cool if you want to like look into it. I would go after, I really believe the pricing on a lot of these cryptocurrencies aren't just driven by the underlying financing. I think they're driven a lot based on headlines. So I would search Twitter for the hashtags and the headlines. I would also search really major news websites such as CNBC, possibly ZeroHedge.com. Smatson, welcome. If you can check these major websites, you'll see that it's in the news a lot. So what I was seeing is there's some days where CNBC was only showing maybe like a cryptocurrency article 1 or 2 times a day, and it was getting up to the point where it was like 12 times a day. So the headlines are actually perpetuating the demand in, if you want to call it hype, for these cryptocurrencies, in my opinion. So when Ripple was making the headlines, when Stellar was making the headlines, Tron was making the headlines, they end up making the headlines, and then their stocks are way up. Sometimes it's a little bit later in the game that happens. Aribi Tra coin. Oh, okay, thanks, Johnny. Yeah, so that's an ICO. So I don't know if you heard earlier today on one of my earlier scopes, Johnny, but Facebook is actually banning any advertising for all cryptocurrencies and ICOs. So that's kind of really big news out there as well. Flat Annie, welcome. Appreciate you coming on. So as we talk about supply and demand, you'll notice a lot of those trends. You'll notice that when the headlines are out there, you'll also notice that these very volatile stocks are real liquid, are easy to trade, right? Then you started to see it in the stock market. Then you see this stock market started, some of these stocks and companies started using blockchain and cryptocurrency in their pivoting their company business model or in their stock names, and it was causing it to go way up. And that was also happening, and the SEC got involved in that because they're like, that's not cool that people are doing that. But that was really interesting as well. So again, the headlines affected the stock market, and in the headlines of the cryptocurrency and the Bitcoin and so forth. Blockchain was another one that was used with very very irrelevant companies. Not irrelevant, but companies that were not relevant to blockchain or crypto most of the time, and they were using those names. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And hey, Newberg, dude, how are you doing? Another thing that was really interesting too, as I started to search this, and I feel like 5 or 10 years ago, people would be busy throughout the day, and they would be like, oh yeah, I heard there's a news story or two, that's kind of big news, and they would be like, you know what, I'll catch you on the 10 o'clock news, and then they go home, the whole day is done, and then they catch it on the 10 o'clock news, and they get updated on what happened. They've maybe heard about it. But what's happening now is the news stories are actually driving our lives. We're getting notified instantly, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, hour, and you're hearing about stuff hourly now, and it's influencing our conversation. It's influencing the direction, the volatility of a lot of stuff we're doing. And so I knew that was happening. I think we all know that was happening, but where it became really interesting was when I went to Google Trends website and I started searching the headlines of stuff like cryptocurrency and Bitcoin, and it goes back to 2004. And I even started looking up real estate investing, real estate, foreclosure, short sales, and some of that stuff. And it gives you, it's all relative to that search term, and you can look at like when it was getting 100% of its searches and when it was getting, like 0% of its searches. I looked up some real estate gurus. I looked up about 60 different graphs, and I was blown away. Hey, Liam, I was blown away by how volatile it really has been, right? So, like, for example, I would say something like cryptocurrency or Bitcoin, where you're like, everybody's talking about cryptocurrency or Bitcoin. And it's like the pricing is going up, and everybody's talking about it, and it's something where you see people in everyday public talking about it. And then you pull up like a 30-day chart of Google Trends, and you look up cryptocurrency, and it's all relative, but you're like, based on when people were really talking about it, like it was at a height probably like maybe 2 weeks ago or a month ago. But it's like right now, it's technically down about 75% as far as like people talking about it or like buzz about it and so forth. And so is it any big surprise that, and that just happened over a course of days, right? I mean, we saw with Ripple and Tron and everything else, we saw some of those dip 30% and 85% in just a few days, right? Volatility, right? So we're going to maybe now start to see that with interest rates and with the bond market and all that, and it could bleed out into like the real estate market and so forth. But what's really interesting about that is you saw go from if you go to Google Trends, go do some different search terms, you'll see that it was like at 100% and went down to like 25%. And I was just like, I can't believe it went down that much. And just like, it seemed like such a big deal to everybody. And it just like went away, just like that, right? And I even looked up some of the real estate gurus from 14 years ago in real estate investing and some of that. It's still down 75% from like the height of all the excitement, probably from the seminars and all that kind of stuff, from 2004, 2005, 2006. And it's amazing how much that's gone down over all the years, the excitement for that. Now, if you look at some other stuff like Bitcoin and cryptocurrency and you go back 14 years, it's obviously way up, right? It's in the news compared to where it used to be. And you look up other companies. We've talked about a company, my friend Ryan is with, EXPI is their stock symbol. And that one's straight up. It's like the hockey stick growth, right? So that's another thing that you notice as well. So I think it's a good indicator, to find out like what's really a good trend long term. The other thing is you can use Google Trends to look up what's going on in the last hour, what's going on in the last 4 hours. I was never like the biggest watcher of like the Oscars or the Grammys, but like another example would be, I felt like with something like the Oscars or the Grammys, like you would have said, well, I can't wait till the Oscars or the Grammys come up in a week from now, and then like maybe you kind of think about it for like that whole week. But like now I started looking at the chart and it almost looked like the majority of the searches or the majority of the people really search for it just like hours, just 3 to 5, 6 hours before it was on. Hey, KMC. So it wasn't like they were like searching about it consistently over a week. It was almost like they heard about it, they knew it was kind of coming, but then it was on the top of their mind, and then like it eventually came up like to that day, and they're like, okay, now I'll search and see what the latest information is. So it's almost like we're waiting on the news and like what's the coolest thing for that day or whatever is live or whatever is the biggest news for that day to direct us in as to where we're going to research and invest our time. So it's pretty interesting how that works because Pablo, hey, how's it going? Because for those that are like Gen Xers or older, you probably remember back, it wasn't that long ago, 7, 8, 9 years ago, where there's a lot of planning. There was a lot of like, this is going to be in a week from now, and then you start thinking about it almost every day or something like that. And it just doesn't seem like there's any of that anymore. It's like you wait till the day of, and then you start like planning it a little bit. So like another example would be when I used to do a lot more traveling in real estate around the cities. I used to pull up MapQuest, if you remember that back in the day. And you like print it out, you do it an hour, 2 hours ahead of time, maybe a few hours ahead of time before your meeting, you print it out, kind of review it a little bit, and you're like, yeah, I'll take this with me. I'll remember to bring it with me in the car. This is 12, 13 years ago. Hey, Michael, and you bring it in the car, and then you just drive to it. And it was pretty cut and dry. You kind of got a feel for the area that you're in, and you've been to a lot of cities, and MapQuest had the directions, step by step. Well, for the last 5, 7, 8 years, ever since we have navigation, that's our expectation. We have it on smartphones. People will just jump in the car and they'll just start driving in that direction, and then when they get within 5 miles, then they'll turn on the turn by turn and information overload. Difficult to filter out the important stuff. What's relevant despite trends? Information overload. Yeah. There is a lot of time spent on going over the information now, isn't there? But I've just noticed with the turn-by-turn directions on it, like people just do that at the very last minute now. They don't like take in that information and think about it at all. They're just like on the go. They're always moving and all that stuff. But yeah, you're right. There is a lot of information. Hey Gambo, there's a lot of information, and we're actually kind of in that mindset where we're kind of discerning, or we're kind of filtering, or we're kind of eliminating things as quickly as we can as far as where we're going to invest our time. And it's like, even when somebody like I'm going to be making plans with you, like even if somebody said, hey, I'm flying into Minneapolis and from another state, I'm going to see you in a week when we come in for the Super Bowl, for example, I'd be like, cool, well, why don't you just let me know like the day or two before that, and we'll plan something out. Because a lot of what people say nowadays is like, oh, well, let's do this and let's do that. I mean, it ends up changing anyways, right? I mean, somebody else influences them or changes their mind, or they're decided to meet somebody else, or it was contingent on 3 other people getting back to them, or maybe they got a free night stay somewhere else. I mean, you just never know, right? So a lot of us are just waiting until we're closer to that minute of meeting the people. So that's something I've noticed as well. But yeah, the world's changing quickly. I would use Google Trends to see your cycles. I would use it to know what to reinvest in. Because when I talk about reinvesting cycles, you might invest in something for that week, but then if something makes you pivot and you want to change the next month, you're going to need to be a little bit more of an, hey, 79 Hellcat, you need to be a little bit more of a long-term investor instead of just day trader type thing. So we could talk about reinvestment cycles for real estate, building your foundation, building cash flow. Kiyosaki wrote a really good blog article that was posted yesterday about investing in an inflation world. I really liked it a lot. I shared it in my Facebook group. I shared it with a few friends. I highly recommend reading it. I did go on his blog yesterday. I read a few other ones of his. I've always thought Robert Kiyosaki's messaging on Rich Dad Poor Dad was probably the most succinct and probably the most on point and on the money that I've ever seen, really, for just the core messaging of business, investing, financial, and so forth. And it's just correct. Yeah, to make money, you should be ahead of the trends. I agree, Johnny. Yeah, you do, like, more than you've ever had to, right? I mean, or you can become irrelevant, or you can fall behind faster than almost ever, right? So it's because a lot of things are the attention can be directed in different places, right? I mean, one thing that Gary Vaynerchuk talks about a lot, and I totally agree with him, is he's just like day trading attention, and he's correct on that. I mean, we all have access to smartphones now. We all have access to video. We all can get on live videos now. So we're all really competing for the attention and for the target audience as well, right? So, and which social network do you do it on, right? And which hashtags do you use? Which headlines do you use? So, and will that headline still be relevant a month from now or a year from now? So those are all things to think about as well in the overarching strategy. So I want to thank you guys for your time. I will go ahead and have this uploaded to Instagram and my Facebook group and everything else. And I hope you guys have a good day. Thanks.